There are some shocking claims of violence amidst the Israel-Hamas conflict. Of course, one particular claim has been all over social media the last few days. Now, officials in the Israeli military say they uncovered evidence of a bloody assault by Hamas fighters on the village of Kfar Aza that included the killings of women, children, as well as infants. Now, Deputy Commander in the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, David Ben-Zion, said in an on-camera interview with Israeli television station I-24 News, quote, "They cut heads of children, cut heads off of women." Now, the Hill has not confirmed that these accounts are accurate, has not confirmed them with IDF personnel. The Hill has also reached out to the State Department and an Israeli military spokesperson for more information about what happened at the village. We'll be sure to keep track if we receive any response there.
According to reporting at the Hill, IDF officials took a group of reporters to the Kfar Aza village near Gaza, but much of the information on specifically what has happened has come from IDF sources. Nicole Zedek, an I-24 correspondent, said she had been told by soldiers that 40 babies had been killed in the attack, a figure that has been widely picked up in the media. Per the Hill, IDF spokesperson Major Nir Dinar told Insider that, quote, forces had found the corpses of decapitated babies at the village, but said he had not seen images or videos himself. He also could not confirm the number of casualties a soldier had told the I-24 reporter. He said in a statement to Insider, quote, "We cannot confirm any numbers. What happened in Kibbutz Kfar Aza is a massacre in which women, children, toddlers, and elderly were brutally butchered in an ISIS way of action."
Now, a new CBS report suggests that the claims are in fact true. The head of operations for Israel's volunteer civilian emergency response organization, Yossi Landau, told CBS News he saw with his own eyes children and babies who had been beheaded, saying, quote, "I saw a lot more that cannot be described for now because it's very hard to describe," he said, speaking of parents and children found with their hands bound and clear signs of torture. Major Libby Weiss of the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson told CBS News the depravity of it is haunting. She said that more than one of the Israeli soldiers who first reached Kfar Aza reported finding beheaded children of varying ages, ranging from babies to slightly older children, along with adults who had also been dismembered.
As Israel continues to attack Gaza after the events of the weekend, Palestinian officials said the strikes had killed at least 950 people as of Wednesday morning, with some 5,000 more wounded, most of them purportedly women and children, according to the CBS report. Now,
right, so we're still at the level of not total clarity or confirmation on this very specific claim that was, as I said, on social media a lot with a large number of specifically beheaded corpses of children.
40. The story, the viral story is that there are 40 decapitated babies that were wheeled out of a village on gurneys in this location.
We do, and there's reporters who've spoken to people who say they saw them. It's not, the reporters themselves had not necessarily seen them. During an ongoing conflict, or a mass shooting, a killing, a violent event, the fog of war, there are often false claims made. Wrong people have been identified as perpetrators. I remember that happened with the Boston Marathon bombing. So claims on social media, there'll be images from totally unrelated things. So you got to be very careful out there. And amateurs can get duped on social media. Mainstream reporters can get duped by things. So we got to be careful. It is. I mean, it's not beside the point because it is important to always just be accurate and report accurately. So it's not beside the point. It is confirmed in the case that there are a lot of dead innocent civilians that we've seen. There is footage available. I was going through the New York Times has a good roundup if people want to see it. The images, the videos are horrific. You can see the bodies of people who were killed in their cars, who were killed in their homes, who were killed at the bus station. It is not. It is confirmed that there are children among the hundreds of dead. This specific accusation with the state of the remains is still out there and not confirmed. But it is let's make no mistake that there are a lot of dead people, some in horrific condition, and it's
certainly that's not disputable. I think that what's at dispute, given especially how many lies have already been told, not just about the volume of casualties, but the specific of casualties, has led people to have some skepticism here. So as we've mentioned earlier this week, there was another viral story. And again, this isn't just stories about Israelis being killed. There's a particular kind of story that seems to get a lot of traction, which points to the kind of, quote, barbarity of Palestinians, as opposed to, of course, the frankly exorbitantly larger number of deaths of Palestinian children at the hands of Israelis, not just in this conflict, but over the course of the last decade plus. The nature of the killing is treated very differently. I think the larger volume of Palestinian kids that have been killed by bombs from the air from Israel just aren't getting the same treatment. And when you see stories about how it's not just that kids are dead, but decapitated or kept in cages, as that other story that was debunked earlier this week described, I do think it's something extra about the quote-unquote depravity of Palestinians that they're trying to get across. And that's why I think there's some cautiousness about vetting some of those stories, especially since, as we described before, the one about Palestinian cages was in fact a story about Israeli kids in cages was in fact a story about Palestinian kids in cages that had been misrepresented. So
I don't want to compare one thing to violent conflict is depraved regardless.
Yeah, I don't want to compare one thing to another either, but I'm sorry, deeply disrespectful to all of the Palestinians who have died in this conflict and before, when there's breathless, horrified media coverage about one group but not the other. It should be both. And unfortunately, I think many Americans are completely unaware of the fact that 6,400 Palestinians have been killed in the ongoing conflict since 2008. And again, many of them children. We absolutely should be horrified by stories of Israelis, and especially Israeli kids, being killed. And if this latest one pans out to be true, that is, of course, horrifying. It is, of course, horrifying. But as I said in an earlier segment, I think the credibility of people who want to speak to the horror of that is diminished by not similarly holding the value of precious Palestinian children in as high regard as the lives of precious Israeli children. And so I did want to run through some of the instances of misrepresentation that have happened, which is why some people are looking at this particular story with skepticism. So we had an instance where Jamie Lee Curtis, and a number of actors and famous people did this, but Jamie Lee Curtis was in particular called out for posting this image decrying the violence against Israel and the death and the targeting of children, as you see all the kids in that picture. And it turned out it was a picture of Palestinian kids looking at the threat of missiles dropping from the sky, as has been the ongoing situation in Gaza for years. And when people pointed out that she was wrong about that, she took the image down, but didn't say anything in sympathy for Palestinian children in a way that seems to reflect, I think, what I'm saying here, that there is a difference. There's a difference of interest in the lives of one group of kids versus the other.
I mean, that photo it's in the New York. I have it right here. It was in the New York Times coverage of what's going on in Gaza, which is titled "Nowhere to Hide in Gaza as Israeli Onslaught Continues. Residents and health authorities say the mosques, hospitals, and schools are being targeted by airstrikes." The first sentence is about flattening mosques over the head of worshipers. So I mean, there is.
I'm confused. I'm confused. What does that have to do with Jamie Lee Curtis saying that it was a bad thing?
Ignorant of.
Right.
The New York Times is covering and as they should.
Right. I'm just a little confused though about what that has to do about the point I'm making about how celebrities like Jamie Lee Curtis and others have shown a very different approach and were looked at an image very differently when they think it's an Israeli kid versus when they think it's a Palestinian kid.
Well, I don't think she deleted it because she thought it was. I think she deleted it because she was wrong. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not. It was a mistake, and as I said, celebrities, amateurs, everybody can get fooled in the fog of war by social media, by anything. So it's incumbent to be very careful and very cautious and not make overly broad claims and not.
Yeah, and in the other direction, there have been some claims. Israel has used white phosphorus against on Gaza in the past, but there have been a mixture of, again, wrong images of previous instances being lumped into this crisis. There have been buildings, demolitions that have been from previous years that have been described as consequences of this current crisis. And there is this story as well about the 22-year-old Shani Luke, who was initially reported to have been murdered and raped and her body paraded around by Hamas. New reporting suggests that she's alive and in the hospital. Obviously, we still don't know what happened, and it's horrible that she is in the hospital and was a victim of this horrible, illegal, unethical attack. But again, there is, I think, a lot of guardedness, understandably so, about people rushing to judgment and fully understanding these stories, because there does seem to have been real efforts at misinformation percolating around. And I think it will do everybody a service just to take a beat until a lot of these stories are vetted out.
Right, take a beat, yes, because the truth matters, and sometimes it's not clear what's going on in brief clips, and clips from old things have been circulated. I mean, it is confirmed she was very grievously wounded. She's understood. She's been reported that she's in the hospital. It's not clear, who or why she was brought there, or what state she's in now. Obviously, everyone should wish the best for her. I think the imagery was still very powerful and shocking and horrifying, as so much of these, the videos speak for themselves. I mean, I've seen videos now of people just shot in their cars, of getting out of the car still alive, and then being finished off by the militants, and it's horrifying. It's deeply horrifying. But yeah, we have to. It's incumbent on the media to be responsible as they report on these things.
Yeah, and then to not, there was a lot of Twitter talk and the like about instances of rape, which many newspapers had to withdraw because there was no confirmation of those sexual assaults having taken place. And you have to start to ask yourself the question, why would people lie about something like that when the reality is already so horrible? Why would someone lie and add additional claims like that on? And I think people really have to sit with that question.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, she looked, her body was in the, we saw the same image, right? I don't know who added that rhetorical flourish that might not be true at all.
It wasn't just her. There were many reports. The initial reporting was that there was widespread rape that was happening, and a number of papers had to retract that because they weren't able to confirm any of that reality. It's worth saying that about an hour ago, The Insider published a report on this decapitated baby story, saying that IDF, again, wouldn't back up its claims that Hamas had decapitated these babies. They said it's because it was disrespectful of the dead to confirm it. I don't know if that seems.
I'm not. If those images exist, I'm not ready to see them.
No, it's not. It's not whether or not you want to see them or publish the images, but to confirm whether or not it's true. IDF still hasn't confirmed that the story is true. So this is why we're living in this kind of skeptic zone. If it's, I think we should all be hoping that it's not true because the underlying tragedy is horrible. But of course, if it is true, it needs to be reported out and understood.
I would say things are bad enough without, and it's so bad, even if these couple things that were widely reported on social media are totally false or partly false. I guess I hope they are, but I still from the videos I've been able to see of the deaths of innocent people in a variety of circumstances, people who are just going about their day on a weekend morning, suddenly gunned down or blown apart. It's really awful. But that doesn't change anything about the obligation of people to.
It is really awful. And we also have to hold space for 140 Palestinian children who have been killed in this last weekend of conflict. And it is awful, even if we don't have the same images of them, and even if they were killed from bombs from the sky instead of in hand-to-hand combat. Yeah. It is awful. And in the interest of protecting the interests of all of these children and other adult innocent civilians, I do hope there is a focus on getting to the bottom of this conflict, which is the bubbling over of 2 million people that have been kept in this open-air prison with no way to escape for generations.
More Rising right after this.